Good morning, good evening. Welcome to yet another episode of Going Beyond Your Comfort Zone, where we talk about going beyond your comfort zone, how to deal with change, and uh, with all that knowledge, what are we creating for our futures? And today, my guest is Elisa Di Napoli. She is calling in from Wellington, New Zealand. I'm in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. I don't think we could be much further apart. Elisa is a life coach, hypnotherapist, author, musician. And when we started talking about this episode, we talked about stage fright and how to overcome that. With that said, that's what we'll at least talk about in this episode, and maybe much more. Elisa, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and welcome to this episode.
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, so I have two big passions in my life. One is psychology, personal development, and the other one is music. And so they're very intertwined. And my mission basically is to try and use music for healing, but also use what I know about psychology to help the musician. I used to suffer really badly from performance anxiety, and specifically that's why I specialized in helping people with this problem, because for many years I had it pretty bad, and it's not fun, but it also is not something that you have to live with for the rest of your life.
Okay. So how did you notice that it was like showing up in your life and bothering you, and you for yourself needed to deal with this or work on this?
Well, it was pretty clear. First of all, just before every performance, I would feel really stressed out. I would
Mm.
over practice, and to the point that I just hated practicing, and I would worry a lot about the worst case scenario and what happens if I forget my words and etc. etc. And basically mentally rehearse this worst case scenario, and then if I made it to the stage, if it wasn't, if I didn't get a mysterious illness the day before and lost my voice, which has happened, uh, I would make it to the show, but really I wouldn't enjoy the performance. I would play badly, I would make mistakes, I would forget my words, and I wouldn't have fun. That's for sure. And then by the end of it, I just would not want to do it again. so so it was pretty terrible.
But you kept showing up, you kept performing, or
Yes, I did, but it was not, I wasn't doing it the right way. I was kind of making it worse because I was creating more negative experiences for myself, and so then I would dread it more. Um, and I tried many other things. I tried everything I under the sun. Like I took actors classes, improv classes. I tried beta blockers. I tried drinking tequila before, not too much tequila, but some tequila before the show.
uh,
Uh, no, like these things marginally helped, but they're also quite dangerous because if you don't, if you drink too much, you're definitely not going to have a good time and definitely forget words and chords and all of that. If you take beta blockers, at least in my case, it felt kind of like I lost the connection with the audience. I was just kind of a bit of a robot, so the performance didn't help the performance. And with improv it helped, but only insofar as the bits in between songs, so I was more able to talk to the audience. But then when actually it came the time to perform the song, not much had changed. So even though I kept showing up, I actually kept on piling up the negative conditioning, so that didn't
mhm.
work at all. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I find it fascinating that you had the drive to keep performing. Where was that coming from?
Oh, I'm just a pretty driven person, you know. I am very much one of those people that just keeps going because there's, you know, I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna give up. But I did get to a point where I was really, really close to giving up, and
Hmm.
I pretty much, you know, I had this terrible experience where I was singing and playing, but I was very nervous. And then in the middle of the performance, I just blanked out. Couldn't remember anything. Couldn't just went, and it was so. You know, at the time, I felt it was very humiliating, and basically, I had to run out of the theater, and I didn't come back. It was just like, oh my god! After that experience, I thought this isn't worth it. You know, maybe I'm just don't have what it takes, and blah 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 blah. And then, so I made that kind of decision in my head at the time. Okay, this is it, not for me. But as soon as I made the decision, I just felt my heart sink. You know, I felt like someone had, I don't know, cut my arm off. You know, and I felt very sad. You know, very sad. And I thought, oh God, this is a mistake. You know, like this is not the way to go. You gotta find another way. Um, and that's why, you know, I went into a different direction because everything else that I tried before hadn't worked. And so weirdly enough, you know, it may seem strange, but you know, it's like fish are in the sea, they're not aware that they're in the sea. I was, and I still am a hypnotherapist at the time, but I actually weirdly never dealt with a specific problem. And
Hmm.
also, I had this thing of, oh yes, you know, hypnotherapy works for everyone else, but you know, I don't know, maybe it doesn't work for me, or oh, I should be above it, you know, which is
Yeah.
bullshit. Yeah, absolutely bullshit. So I I went to my colleagues and I asked them to if they could help me, and yes, each one gave me a different, you know, perspective and helped me in ways that actually started to work. And so after that, I was quite impressed, and I thought, okay, well, if this works for me, then it can definitely work for other people. And so I started actually specializing in that in my practice. This was when I was in the UK in Edinburgh, and so I had many clients with this problem there, and I kind of put together a program, if you like, you know, of sessions and what would each session do for what, you know. So put it on all together, and then and after that, though, I realized, you know, maybe I should make this into a book because I didn't know anyone who specialized in this as a hypnotherapist,
Hmm.
and also well, not everyone could come to me. You know, I was just one person in Edinburgh, you know, but this is a problem a lot of people have all over the world. And what if somebody can't afford to see me, or can't, you know, yeah, can't have one-on-one sessions, you know, that's a possibility because hypnotherapy is not cheap
Hmm.
for a reason, because it's actually quite hard to find really good hypnotherapists. You know, like it's a bit of an art. It's not just a science, it's also an art. It's like being a good actor, you know, like not everybody's a good actor. You can study it, but you know. So yeah, so that's when I basically decided to write the book, and then I did an online course and so on and so forth, you know, just to kind of make it a bit more accessible to other people, I guess. Yeah.
So, did you have to go this deep to be able to deal with this yourself? That you almost came to the point that you wanted to give up?
Hmm. Well, yes, but before I actually started getting into the final
Hmm.
stage, you know, when
Okay. Yeah.
actually I started to see some proper changes, you know, and
Okay.
and and then I, yeah, became more hopeful because I thought, okay, well, I tried everything else and it's not working, or is working very minimally. So I got hope, you know. I started hoping and thinking, actually, maybe there is a solution, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah,
And then,
after that, I didn't give up.
okay, how did it change your like performing on stage and the stage fright, and does it still show up? Maybe milder or not at all, or is it occasionally that it shows up?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Um, I had a period of time where when I started using these techniques and I started actually performing a lot, and every time I would, apply what I had learned, and it would just happen through conscious effort and to subconscious um, conditioning, I guess. But it got to the point, and this is when I was still in Edinburgh, when before the pandemic, when actually I started really enjoying performing. And I mean, I used to have this problem in interviews as well. I couldn't have done this. I would have, suddenly frozen and or talked really fast. I still, I have to be careful that I don't talk too fast because it's easy for me to go back. However, I started feeling less and less nervous before a performance. Now, this doesn't mean that I wasn't nervous at all, but it was
Mm,
a normal kind of sort of a low kind of nervous that made it possible for me to, give me enough adrenaline to just like be present in the moment, and but not too much that I was freezing, that I was like a rabbit in the headlights. And so after a while of this, I started actually really going into flow. And the flow was just wonderful because it's just this amazing, amazing feeling that you don't even have to think anymore. You're not thinking. Your body knows what to do. You trust your body. All you really need to do is like focus on the feeling that you're feeling, the emotion that you're trying to portray, the music itself, really enjoying it. And when you enjoy yourself, then the audience also enjoys themselves. They really can feel the difference because they can feel whatever you feel. So if you're feeling nervous, they'll get nervous too. So
yeah.
that was amazing, right? But then unfortunately pandemic hit, and so then everything stopped. And of course I didn't perform for like 2 3 years, right? And so
Hmm.
then when I went back to it, I regressed. I gone back to what it was before. Not as bad, but still not as good as when I was practicing all the time. And so it took a while for me to actually reconnect, like go back to the same, to what I learned. And because really what we're talking about here is neural pathways. It's
Hmm.
like the way I like to think about neural pathways is that imagine that you are walking in a forest and it's snowing, and you have gone down path A every single day for your walk. So path A will be nice and clear. It'll be easy to go down that path. But if you decide, look, you know what, this path always gets me to a rubbish dump. I don't want to go there anymore. And you see that there's another path, path B, but path B is full of snow. It's really difficult. You need to get a shovel and just get rid of the snow and really put a lot of effort into it. And the day after will be slightly easier, but it still won't be as easy as path A. And you have to basically go back and go back and go back enough times to reinforce this neural pathway so that
Hmm.
then that becomes the path that's familiar and it's easy to go down. And on the other side, you're losing it because if you don't use it, you lose it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with that. Um, so, but like, what kind of stage fright do you help people with, your clients?
Well, when you say what kind, I don't really think that there's a kind.
Okay.
Basically, no matter, there's different levels.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's different symptoms, but really stage fright is stage fright. It's not just when you are frozen. Okay, it
Hmm.
could be uh, nervousness, but excessive nervousness before
Yeah.
going. It could be actual panic. You could have different symptoms. You could have, you could have a parched throat. You could be trembling. I'm just gonna fix my camera because I think it's gone out of focus.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
come on. Let's see, maybe if I have more light. Okay. So yeah, so there might be different symptoms, there might be different intensity, if you like, but
Mhm.
it's essentially performance anxiety is performance anxiety. You know, you're basically feeling excessively anxious about being seen, being the center of attention. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, let me rephrase my question a little bit. You work with people that perform, let's say, in presentation, in music, in all kinds, like on podcasts like this, or
Yeah.
on. Okay.
Yeah, it's all the same. At the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's a fear of rejection. You know,
Hmm.
it's a fear of, yeah, I'm not being good enough, of
Yeah.
people finding out that, oh, actually you're an imposter. You know, all of that stuff, it's got the basis in fear of rejection.
Yeah, I'm I'm doing this stand-up comedy course, and we have to put we're nine people, and we're performing all of us for the first time next week, and it's so
Wow.
fascinating on how people are dealing with their yeah, with their stage fright, or like, and how some of them like push through and others are like uh, extremely nervous, like trembling, wet hands, and but you can't see it. You know, they're like they just stand there. Okay, you know, some people do talk a little bit faster, but that's about it. And you don't see people's hand trembling or that they're like sweating. It's just very fascinating on how and why people are doing it and going through with it. And also, um, like there's people that are inviting a lot of people to come to the show, and then there's people that are like, I haven't even told a single person that I'm doing this course. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting." Um, yeah, it's a really funny experience, but also it's like for me, uh, like yeah, it shows up like once in a while. Like it's like oh my god, why am I doing this? And then tonight I will do like a rehearsal, and it's okay, you know. But then I'm like, like I have these moments in the day where I'm like, oh, I'm really doing this, but that's
And
okay.
then what do you do to deal with it?
What do I do? I I try. I really like try to just like be like. Well, first of all, I take the pressure off. It doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, I
Mm.
I look at it like um it's my it's my first time, and a lot of people like people in my life, they're like, oh man, that you do this is like so amazing, and that you dare to do this. And then I try to go more into that story. There's nothing, if I flop or if I bomb or whatever, then it's okay, it's the
Yeah.
first time, I didn't really learn to walk the first time. So it's just, I try to take the pressure off, and I do try to also like relate to things where I did perform well in front of
Mm.
people. Um, I sometimes lead funerals as well. So I speak in front of like, let's say, like 70 people, 100 people. It's very
Right.
short, but you're very visible, of course. But that's like, I mean, that somehow uh, seems easier than this. But I mean, it's like it's still something that I do, that like that I can use as an experience for this. It's like, if I can stand in front of 100 people at a funeral, uh, I can do this as well. And I just want to, it's just like I I rather want to experience it than not experience it. Um, so Yeah, I don't like the alternative is for me is worse than um
Yeah.
actually than doing it. So yeah, these are kind of like the narratives that I have. I do practice, not excessively, um, and that will also give me the confidence to yeah, to do it. I mean, I'm not like I do my set twice a day now, um, and that really helps. I'm not like doing it 100 times a day. Uh, I do. I mean, this is another thing. I do notice that I procrastinate while in practicing. Instead of doing it like first thing in the day, I do it at the end of the day. But I mean, at least I do it. So those are the things that um, I don't know. That's it for me. I don't know what you. How do you?
Well, there's something about comedy specifically, and starting uh, uh, the career or the hobby of being a stand-up comedian that is a bit different to, for example, being a musician, right? And that's the fact that if you're starting with comedy, you will bomb. I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah,
just gonna
yeah.
happen, right?
Mhm.
Right? Which is different because in music, usually you don't tend to get yourself out there until you've rehearsed a piece for a long time, and you get feedback. You have band members. You have it's a little bit different. You could put on the internet. You could get feedback that way, right? But with comedy, you will bomb. So the idea here is to actually reframe what that is, because a lot of people think of it as failure, and it's like, okay, what is failure? Failure really is feedback. It's just basically telling you that what you are doing isn't quite landing, it isn't quite working, it's not doesn't give you the effect that you want. So that's all it really means. So all you need to do is to study it, learn, understand what it is that's not working, adjust, and then try again. And if it doesn't work again, you repeat this until it finally works. I was reading a book by Steve Martin about the beginning of his career. He's now huge, but when he started, he spent years and years and years just traveling around America to really small clubs and bombing all the time. He got rejected loads of times, and the what he understood though that it was a craft, and he needed
Mm.
to actually learn the tools of the craft, and it's timing, there's body language, it's complicated, there's a lot to it. So if you take the failure as feedback and learn from it, that actually becomes really valuable. And the other thing that I wanted to say about this is something that I learned from improv. In improv, there's an exercise called I fucked up. And the exercise is really great because what you do is in a circle with other people, and you have to do something that's actually really quite hard. Like you have to use your both your hands, and then you have to say a name at the same time and use your leg. Basically, it's impossible to get it right, and it's designed so that you will get it wrong, so that then when you fuck up, when you make a mistake, you run around the circle and you go, I fucked up, and you're like really happy about it, like you celebrate that you fucked up. And the reason for that is that if you fucked up, it's because you got out of your comfort zone, right? You learned something new. So that's to be celebrated. And also, it's not that bad, it's not as serious. It's just comedy, So, so I just wanted to say that specifically about stand up comedy.
Yeah. I mean, that was like when I looked into it, I was like, that was the first thing I read or that sticked with me was like, if you want to do this, get ready to bomb, because you will bomb. And yeah, that's it. And I was like, oh, okay. So like everyone that like all these people that are like that have their specials on Netflix and things like that, they all bomb and they still bomb, you
Yeah.
know. and that's okay. It's
Yeah.
that's but it's I mean I really it's just so much fun to do. So I'll see what happens. Um, but yeah. So like to continue our conversation and a little bit the flow um of the life. So what are you like? I do want to talk to you a little bit about like change and how you deal with change in your life and how you notice that you resist change and what things you have in place to deal with that. And if it's not for you, like personally or on stage, maybe in your business or in your private life.
Well, it's funny. I actually like change.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's uh I don't know. I have a partner who's very much my opposite. He
Mhm.
hates it. Anything that's change, he hates it. And he just wants to have his routine, and for me, for years the opposite was true. For years I could not have a routine. I had to change all the time. And I think both kind of attitudes aren't particularly healthy. Like, I think you need to be a bit in the middle. Like, it's important to have a routine, to have stability, but at the same time that you need variety in life. And if without the variety, you're kind of dead. It's a bit, you stall. It's a bit stale. So the idea for me, change is exciting, because it basically means that I'm going to have an adventure, and I don't know what will happen, but I'll figure it out. And it's kind of this attitude of, I think I can do this. I think. And often, I mean, I'm a bit of an optimist in that way, and sometimes I suffer the consequences. Like, to give you an example, in my life I've changed residence, like, at many times, but I changed country. Like, I lived in Italy, I lived in Ireland, I lived in Scotland, England, New Zealand, and it wasn't easy. But every time I just wanted the change so badly that I was like, no, I'll make it happen. And the first few times I was a bit naive. I didn't realize what it actually meant, and but even later, when I had to do it again, like a couple of years ago, I changed, and I came and lived in New Zealand, and it wasn't easy. But luckily, I say to myself, well, even when things don't are not ideal, and there will be challenges,
Mhm.
well, this too shall pass. Change is the only thing that is inevitable. You just can't stop it. So you might as well go with it. Sounds a bit trite and obvious, but really, like, the life gives you lemons, make lemonade, that kind of thing. To me, I remember the first time someone said that to me when I was a kid, and I was like, my mind was blown, at the time. But I still think that's actually quite wise. It's like, you've got to work with what you've got, learn to love the excitement of change,
Mhm.
and have trust that you have what it takes to navigate it.
And are there moments or have there been moments in your life that you resisted it or?
Yeah, I guess the main moments were when, relationship breakups.
Mhm.
Those are the hardest for me, have been the hardest change, because, but I think the reason is because of how I framed them. I didn't frame them particularly positively. I when I saw the change as reflecting the fact that, oh, it's happening because I'm not good enough. That's the meaning. If that's the meaning I give it, then it's
Mhm.
going to be really hard to,
Yeah.
so it's about changing the meaning. And so, if eventually I was able to change the meaning, and also telling myself that, like I said before, this too shall pass. In the worst of circumstances, when I had nothing to fall back on. I didn't have, there was a time when I was on my own. in Edinburgh. I didn't have anybody, I'd lost a partner, and I had previously lost a friend, and it was like, oh my God, just I'm on my own, and this is my worst nightmare. But what can you do? I just said to myself, look, you've gone through hard times before. These can't last forever. So let's focus on what you would like to create now. And also, when you feel sad, be be with it, stay with it. Imagine, I like the idea of, the inner child that we all have, this younger person. We've got many parts of ourselves, but there's this younger person that is hurt. And that's the person that needs encouragement and kindness, and it doesn't need harshness. And it needs, if it feels sad, maybe you have to just stay with that part and
Hmm.
give it what it needs, give it a hug, let him know, let her, him know that you're there for them, even if no one else is around, you are. You've got their back, and so it's not easy, but that's how I have overcome those times that were very dark.
Yeah. And do you see them? Are they like? Do you see them as lessons of growth, lessons of life? Would you do you think you would be in the same place if that would not have happened, or maybe not so
Mm.
much like in the physical place, but like.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Mhm.
No, I think that everything that has happened to you has shaped you.
Mhm.
You're not in control, of what happens, but you are in control of how you respond to it. And in me, there's been a lot of, especially when I was younger, in my childhood and in my 20s, I was not a happy person. I had a lot of emotional problems, and I did a lot of therapy, and I worked a lot on it, and it was really not a fun time. But now that I'm a lot older, I think the reason why now I feel good is because I did those things, and
Yeah.
I didn't hide, and now I can help other people because I know what it's like. I don't have any, I think life is a mixture of sorrow and beauty. You've got both.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
if you only see the beauty, then you're superficial. You've got to be able to see the sorrow because it's there. And if you
Yeah.
only see the sorrow, then you get super depressed and suicidal, and you don't want that either. You want to hold the two together, and yes, there is sorrow, yes, there is suffering, but there's also beauty. And if we can experience this with others, it makes it less of a burden. I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. If it's only highs, then that will just be a flat line, or if it's only lows, that's also a flat line. You need the variety and uh yeah, the peaks and the lows to appreciate both. So yeah. Um just taking all that knowledge forward, like how are you looking towards your future? What are you creating for your future?
Well, so very unexpectedly, the last 2 decades have been, especially the last decade, but it started 2 decades ago. I've been about healing myself, and then about building a business that I could feel proud of,
Hmm.
that I feel is meaningful. I feel that is doing something positive, or at least making a contribution. But now, um, because I have done those two things, and of course, you never stop learning and growing, but the big part of the job, so to speak, has been done. Now my focus is actually on artistry and self-expression, and but from a different depth, like giving what I really want to do is, and I'm doing that every day more, is give more space to the part of me that um, is all about creativity, is all about, playing music, enjoyment, fun. Because I kind of missed out on the fun. I
Mhm.
did a lot of work, and the fun was like, where's the fun? And so now I have to learn to actually welcome it, and I recognize it, welcome it, and also be my own, build a relationship with myself, um, and not just serve others. Like, I think sometimes therapists use the therapy so that they can feel good because they're not thinking about themselves. They're just
Uh-huh.
focusing on other people. I
Yeah.
definitely have done that in the past, like I was helping other people, so I don't have to think about myself. But now that doesn't work anymore. And so now I am definitely re-welcoming or learning to welcome more fun and connecting more to the creativity again, but not from a place of sorrow, but more from a place of telling my story or telling other people's story, enriching life, um, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and it's actually, I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, and I do get you saying, like, you know, when I help other people, I don't have to focus on myself. But yeah, I mean, so um, is it more like in your personal life, or is this also in business, or
What you mean incorporating fun? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, or everywhere?
Um, well, okay. So if we're talking about music, because I teach music and I have a music school, so
Hmm.
uh, in teaching, definitely, there has to be fun. Because if there isn't fun, you're not gonna want to learn much. It
Hmm.
gets tiring pretty quickly. There's difficult parts in the where we need to be very determined when we learn any skill. But if it's not fun, like if we don't connect to that part of fun, we're gonna give it up eventually. you
Yeah.
know so for that part of the business, definitely. For therapy, I can be playful. I think it's good to be playful in sessions, when it's appropriate, because it lightens things, and often, we can kind of hyper focus on problems, and of course they need to be dealt with, but it can be a counterbalance. It can be like, okay, sometimes a good joke, a good laugh can help a lot.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yes. um, and then in my personal life, definitely, because I tend to be a workaholic. I tend to work too much, and I recognize this pattern in myself. And so I've started working on that and going, okay, I need clear boundaries where I'm going to say no, this is enough time, I'm not going to give any more, and this is time for me. And it's not an easy thing for me. It doesn't come natural, so I really need to work on it. Funnily enough, I need to work on having fun.
Okay, great. I think that's a great line to finish this interview with. To have more fun, bring more fun in your life. Where can people reach you, Elisa, and for what? So feel free to make as much promotion for yourself as you like.
Yeah, so the easiest place is my website. I've got two, but my main website for coaching and therapy and all of that is called Elisa Di Napoli, so like my name.com. And I also have a free resource that I wanted to offer your audience. So I made a link especially for that, which is elisadinapoli.com/Baz, so BAS, your name basically, and that's for a masterclass, that a very practical masterclass that tells you a technique that helps you calm down before a performance, and it's a very, very hands-on thing. So I really recommend it. And it's not one of those master classes, when you just watch this thing that's empty. There's like nothing for you except an offer. It's not like that. It does have an offer at the end, but it's only if you want more support and you want to go deeper. But otherwise, you'll still get a lot of value just by signing up for the webinar, for the masterclass.
Okay. So if you're dealing with any stage fright, then take her up on it. With my name, it must be good. No. Okay, Elisa, thank you so much. It was really
Thank
a
you.
pleasure talking to you, and yeah, for the audience, I'll be here next week with a different guest, and yeah, thank you so much. Bye bye.
Well, thank you, Beth.
Bye.